Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of PitchUs. I'm excited to have Pete Maston with us with Learnie. My name's Tim Cooley. I am the founder of PitchUs as well as the author of the Pitch Deck book. Really excited to tell you guys we are now offering pitch competitions. So go to our website, pitchus.io, compete, pitch your company. We will be having investors that will be looking at these companies. So please go there, check it out. Pete, please, let's get into it. Just share your deck and pitch us.
Very good. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to telling you a little bit about Learnie. I'll tell you a little bit of the high level view is we're a certified B Corp. We are a mobile community micro learning solution for both businesses and for influencers that want to create subscription paywall private communities. We've been in business since 2020. We launched the B2B service in 2021, and we launched the B2B2C service in 2022. We are actually actively going to be getting you see, pending status on Certified B Corp. We are actually going to be getting our full status, B Corp status, hopefully in the next few months. They're really backed up. A lot of people are moving into the B Corp community, and so it's a busy time over there. We set out to solve four basic problems with learning. So think about organizational learning, not necessarily schools, but think about companies, nonprofits, for profits that want to train their workforce. There are four basic problems that we identified. One is the forgetting curve. The forgetting curve, it happens for a couple of reasons. One of the biggest reasons is a shortened attention span of learners. If you're a fan of Ted Lasso, you remember he had in one of his episodes that the human attention span. There was a study done that said the human attention span was now shorter than a goldfish. What we did was we set out to build something that creates retention. And we'll talk about what that is in a minute. The other three problems are pretty simple. One is called the 70-20-10 rule. This is a well-studied organizational rule that states essentially that about 70% of what people do within an organization is self-taught. 20% is peer contributed knowledge, and only 10% comes from your corporate learning platform. So we wanted to turn that around. We wanted to capture the knowledge of the crowd. The third problem, deskless workers. Forbes noted pre-pandemic that there were 2.7 billion deskless workers in the world, which is a huge portion of the workforce, and that workforce is underserved by the corporate training platforms that are in production today. And the last one was the high cost of these learning platforms. And the cost isn't just because of licensing. We have licensing. The cost comes from content creation and content acquisition. So we'll talk a little bit about why we solve these four problems. The solution we came up with, mobile community microlearning. Mobile because it's knowledge at the point of need, so it solves the problem for those deskless workers. Community because we capture the knowledge of your private crowd in a private community. And lastly, microlearning because that's a best practice for beating the creating the forgetting curve. So mobile community microlearning. We launched Learnie, as I mentioned, in 2020. We've won a number of awards already. We launched the B2B product, which is Learnie still, but we launched that as a product in 2021 and have been, actively selling that since then. The B2B2C, which is our private subscription model for influencers or creators, we launched only about 6 months ago, and we've had an enormous uptick of activity in Learnie, in particular around that B2B2C. We've have a backlog of influencers that are trying to, build their communities and launch their communities on our platform. And we've, if you downloaded the platform today or downloaded the app today, it's free to users. You can subscribe to, any of dozens of communities that have already been created, and there's dozens more about to be created. So, essentially that model, the B2B2C model, is a very competitive landscape, but it's none of them do community microlearning in the way that we do it. So you have the Teachables, the Udamis, the Mighty Networks, the Kajabis. However, all of them are more traditional learning platforms, or even, essentially website building tools. Whereas we are a true learning platform, a community microlearning platform, very large TAM, and we feel we can capture quite a bit of it. The team is incredible. By far, hands down, and I've had multiple exits from startups. one of the best teams I've ever worked with. In fact, Donna and Karen Miller both came over from my last startup that we sold to a publicly held company. My brother Bill has been in the learning space his entire career since he graduated from college. Tamada and Michael ran an agency in New York for many years and have joined the company and run our marketing department. Kurt runs our community activation, and Danny leads our development effort. Very talented group of people that have been in ed tech for many years, have had multiple exits from multiple ventures. This year, we plan on attempting to get to 3.9 million. It's going to be obviously based on the money we are able to raise. You can see the breakdown of Learnie pays to Learnie business customers. We believe if we can achieve those kind of numbers on the left hand side, that we will achieve the numbers on the right hand side, and that is our stated goal. In terms of the raise, in Q1 or at the end of Q1 of 2023, we're going to launch a seed round raise. We've just completed a friends and family round where we raised close to 279,000. We're going to be raising 3 million in this round, and the use of funds fairly obvious. Primarily sales and marketing. Our product is built and it's solid. Again, please download it, play with it. Product development, we will continue some of that, and then our operations costs continue to grow as we've added users and more communities. So that's our pitch. Love to hear any questions you have. Tell you about our progress and our KPIs, but I'll hand it back to you and see what you have for me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's great. And congrats on the traction so far. So, I'd love to start off and just kind of tell you some of the things that I really liked about the presentation as a whole.
Thanks. Great.
And then we'll go into areas of opportunity. Um, First of all, congrats on the traction so far. All those awards that were on that, I think, at the bottom of one of your slides. Great job there. That was awesome. And honestly, like, I think there's a lot that you did with this branding, and I'm sure it carries straight through to your product, with the kind of like outline silhouettes of people. I do love
That's
seeing that.
Tamada. She's our chief creative goddess, is what we call her. And
That's
she
awesome.
came up. She came up with all of the branding. If you go to our website, you'll see it. It follows through on there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. No, I love both of those elements. It's nice to see people who have got those traction elements. But with that, like, I'd love to just kind of help you bring out some of these key elements that I think are not highlighted enough, and then can add a ton of value. And so, first, let's just start off with font size. I
Mhm.
think you have a lot of text on here. You were only about 6 minutes of a presentation, so you got about 4 minutes to give me a lot more detail, in certain areas. And I
Mhm.
think one of the ways to do that is to eliminate some of this text. Like, let's take the slide that you're currently sharing.
Sure.
Um, you know, if you're an influencer, creator, coach, like, I don't really need to know that. You're not selling to me. This is more of my what would go on a website. But I want to know. This seems like a more like of a business model slide. For
Yeah.
every 30 cents, we make 10 cents, right? Um, from Learnie One, I don't know what the revenue model is there, and I don't know what
You
the
mean
revenue
the
model.
Learning business?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The Learning business model is a straight SaaS model. It's per head count. So, if you've got a company with 1,000 head in it, we've got a tiered pricing model that gets cheaper per person the more people you add. We start at about $4 a month per person, and we get all the way down to close to 17 cents per person per month at the higher volumes. With regard to
Okay.
Learning Pays, it's pretty much what it says here, which is it's an 85-15 split. So the influencer gets 85% minus Stripe fees of all subscriptions. We take 15%.
Cool. Yeah. So I would break these things out in a straight business model slide.
That's good. I like
Um,
that. Yeah.
uh, you need the product also. Let's talk about those in two different things. But I think from a business model slide, it's really important to break these things out in very clean numbers. So let's just stay with finances because we're on it. If you on your forecast slide, you said you started in 2020, but you only gave me the numbers for future 2023.
Right.
So I want to know what percentage of revenue is coming from those three sources of income.
Hmm.
as of today, right? Like the best way to do that that I've seen, and I love these, are just stacked bar charts. Um,
Yeah.
and so, calling out like there's different key metrics you can add to this. So, not daily active users, you can use number of downloads or whatever you want to add to it, just to give us a more number of companies, for example, if you're talking about the enterprise, right? Like add those key metrics with the revenue numbers in a stacked bar chart. Super clean to show
Okay.
us what has happened and then where you're going. And especially if you're getting to, 11.6, right? What percentage is coming from what sources of those revenue, right?
Right. Yeah. I've got those
Uh,
actually in our pro forma. I just don't present them here because they're cluttered looking. But yeah,
yeah.
but I hear you. Yeah, and a
Yeah.
stack.
So
I
if
know,
you,
I know what you mean with a stack bar. Would be a clean way of doing this.
Yeah, so if you do a really clean business model slide, and then it's so easy to just say that with that stacked bar chart, you can just, pair them up really, really well.
Hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay,
100%.
so normally I don't do this, but let's go back through some of the slides since it's just you and me. Go back to the beginning, and we'll just kind of go through them all. Great beginning slide. I love that. I would spend a little bit less time on kind of like the business as a whole, just in the beginning one, and tell me a little bit more about you and why you decided to go down this path.
Ah,
I don't think we learned that at all. Like why this business? Why do you even care? Like what problem?
yeah,
Like
no,
what brought you to this?
that's a great point. I mean, my last business was a learning platform as well, the one I
Mm,
sold, and I identified what was a lot of the things that were wrong with with sort of the standard learning experience platform or whatever. My brother, who I mentioned in the slide, has actually he's worked for some of the largest LMSs in the world, and he was the one who really actually invented the product. And then we started talking about it, and I was like, wow, that's really
mm.
smart. So, but yeah, you're right. I didn't spend any time on that other than what I mentioned in the personnel slide.
Yeah, so I think starting with those two is really key because it grounds us from where you're coming from,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
And then also you can also lead, and I love this phrase. This is one of those things, like what we learned was, and like there are these four elements that are still not being addressed today, right?
Right.
The forgetting curve, the other thing, and I think you did a great job with that. I would actually remove a lot of this text because it doesn't add a ton of value. Like this curve doesn't
Yeah.
really add any value to me as a reader because you've only got, let's say you're on this slide for 15 seconds. Like I can't even read all of that, and I don't know where you want me to focus, and so I'm reading and listening, and those aren't being paired up.
That's interesting. Yeah. I could
Does that
actually
make
remove a
sense?
lot of these, right?
You could almost remove anything other than the shortened times, those two sentences at the
Yeah.
beginning,
Right.
right? So step one is there's forgetting curve. They forget in like 4 seconds, right? I don't know what the actual number is.
It's
And
supposed
then
to
if you
be.
go to,
It's supposed to. Well, the attention span issue is 8 seconds. Humans are eight
okay,
seconds, and goldfish are 9 seconds.
okay, there you
Actually,
go.
I didn't have
So
time room on that slide, so I actually put that here. But
yeah.
that was the study actually says it's 8 second. We're down to 8 seconds, which is kind of hard to believe. But
Right. So the second thing here, and we're just going to stick with what you have. So if we go into this next one, go to your next slide. Now you combine three problem statements. You had one problem statement, and then you
mhm.
combine three.
Yep,
If you're going to use this format, it would be better just to split them up into their own slides. So you could have 4 slides fully dedicated to communicating that one problem statement.
I've
So
done
like,
that. I've done that, and I yeah. So the negative of that is you end up with a 15 slide deck, but you're right. You could just go quickly through each one, right?
yep, you could just, and for me, I was actually, once you mentioned the 7 20 10, because again, these are so short, I didn't realize that deskless workers was on this slide. I just thought you didn't change the slide. And then
Ah,
when you brought up the high cost of traditional, I didn't realize that was on this slide. I was waiting for you to change it. Um,
yeah.
and so,
I've actually struggled with the problem statement. Not struggle with it because we got really good problems that we set out to solve. How to present it in a way
yep,
that because a lot of times, a lot of businesses, it's just like one thing, right? but we've
Hmm.
actually got legitimately four things that we combined into the, that's we solve for. And I've tried to actually combine all four of these onto one slide, going the
Yeah,
opposite direction of you said, and that then it's just way too crowded. So,
way too much. Yeah, I'd split them up, honestly. Give yourself a little bit more room. Make the font. So we suggest no smaller than 22 size font.
okay.
There's also this kind of rule of thumb out there that take the oldest person in the room and divide their age by two. And so that makes it even larger,
And
right?
that's the
So
font, right? I got it. Yeah,
yeah.
that's good.
So you can kind of see like bigger is actually always better in this case with font. Some things say no less or no more than like 7 words. I don't know. That's a hard one, but all right. So go to your solution. So I understand what the platform theoretically does, but I didn't understand how the platform solved those problems that we just talked about based off of what you presented. I get that it's a mobile, it does something with community. I'm not entirely sure, and it's something with micro learning. But you mentioned those 4 problem statements, and but didn't tell me how your platform actually solves those problems.
Hmm. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
guess the way I would state it, and maybe I need to refine this, but mobile solves the problem for deskless workers. So
right.
the mobile deskless worker community captures the knowledge of the crowd, so that solves the problem of two. It actually solves two problems. One is the 70-20-10 because the knowledge is no longer walking out the door. You're having everyone in your community in your organization create knowledge, and also it solves it because it's cheaper, right? You're not having to buy training material. Your employees are creating it, and micro learning is the best practice to beat the forgetting curve. So
Mm,
you're right. I could probably put those bullets under. I mean, I kind of said supports the modern worker. um,
yep.
I say
So what
capturing.
I would do is the other thing then is I would match the order that you presented in. So in this case, you present mobile first because it solves the deskless problem.
Hmm.
Then I would put deskless as the first problem statement so that you're mirroring the earlier conversation.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually, yeah, I could
And
do
then
that.
same thing with this slide. I would break them up into 3. They don't have to be on one slide,
Wow. Okay.
right? Like think about that. If we just took just what you had and then pulled mobile out, gave it a size 30 font, it
Right.
would be really easy to talk about, really easy to follow along. Like you wouldn't have to change anything. You just split that same slide into 3,
Got it. All right.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I get
Um,
it.
yeah, so I think those things would really help with that story element. And then you bring in the revenue model and being very specific. And you can say, look, like the average, and give each one of these a dollar amount so that I can gravitate towards.
You mean
And
like
then,
a 100-person company would pay X much?
yep,
Okay, got it.
yep. And then the average Learnie pay is, let's say $100 a month or whatever, right? Like
Well, we
just
actually have
adds
we have people who have set their price as little as 99 cents. We've also got people who have set the price at, I think the highest price Learning community right now we have is something like 34.99. So, and she's actually an influencer that teaches other influencers how to be an influencer. It's actually one of the most
nice.
popular communities. Yeah, but yeah, I could have those here instead of yeah, because this is truly the marketing day. This is the marketing explanation of what these products are versus the
Yep.
business is. Yeah, yeah, I get it.
Yep. So let's keep it in this. This is fun for me to go through this. So stick with the solution, right? So we just did the solution. Now go straight to the business model,
Hmm.
and then the forecast. Connect those two back to back, typically,
We'll bring this up
and
here.
then go into the full market, right? So you kind of split this up. You've got your um, you make me wait to see what your financial forecast looks like, but yeah, if you put those together, it really works really well.
Okay, so you
Um,
roll from here into there, and then
yeah.
talk about the. And I have actually a similar diagram for the Learning business, but we have, and I don't mention that here really a whole lot, and it's actually something we're discussing internally, which is our focus has very much been on Learning Pays, the subscription model, because
Mhm.
of the response has been so overwhelming. And so we've not stopped selling the Learning business, and we certainly still have about $400,000 in our pipeline there. But but what's interesting is I'm more focused on the Learning business or the Learning pays model, but I do have a similar competitive diagram for the Learning business because they are different, right?
Yeah, so if that's the case, then I would build the whole deck around Learnie Pays. Not that
Yeah,
the other two aren't important, but if that's really the business model and you're raising, I can't remember what the raise
three
was,
million.
um, yeah, 3 million to basically blow this up, then I would almost drop those other two because because kind of what you
You
say
mean
is like,
drop the
look, we
Learning business?
from the deck, not from the business. You can go and do those other things, but the way that I suggest people do is if you were to pick up one, you had one phone call to make, right? That's what this whole business is around.
Yeah,
You can only call one person. In this case, now you have three opportunities. Um, I think in early stage companies, you only have one phone call you can make, and
interesting.
so
Yeah, I
you
mean,
build the whole deck around that.
we've been evolving that way. I've actually considered pitching having this slide be more almost the pivot slide. So
Totally.
how we pivoted through the B2B into the B2B to C, and
Yep.
which is kind of what the arrow is indicating. But I haven't. I'm not. I'm not fully there yet, if you know what I mean. But we're,
Yep.
I mean, we just completed our other raise in December, so we're
Yeah.
but and we've been extremely busy with Learning Pays subscribers that are coming in. So it's that's been a big, yeah. So anyway, that's good info.
So what you can do there then is you can go in and say, so we came out with this idea to solve these four problems. We
Yeah,
started off with these two products. They did okay. What we learned was there was a better avenue or a different avenue or whatever in this market segment, and that's what we're going after. It we charge $10 a month, and then here's what that business model looks like growing
yeah,
moving forward.
yeah,
We're not abandoning the other ones, but we're putting more focus in this one.
yeah. And that is absolutely the truth of the matter, right?
Yep. So yeah, that's how I would present that from a business model perspective.
I like it.
Yeah. So same thing with here. Then if this is good, this is fine. Just keep in mind that there are other markets. TikTok is definitely on here. Um, even though it's not as seen as a direct competitor, it really is.
Yeah,
I mean, I use
but they're
TikTok to
not
learn every day.
really building private communities, right?
No, but I think that's the beauty. But it's still a competitor. It's indirect competitor.
Yeah, but no, but nobody. I mean, nobody is monetizing the way you monetize through TikTok. I don't mean to argue with you about it, but I've thought
No.
about this a lot. Right now, the way they monetize is like if you're a dancer or whatever, or whatever your race car driver, it doesn't really matter. Whatever it is you do, you're getting essentially sponsorship opportunities because you've got 250,000 people on your TikTok channel. But those are
Yep.
like typically one-time payments or maybe a 3-month payment, right? But they are not private subscriptions, which is why these people all go create Teachable accounts or go create Patreon accounts or whatever to try to
Mm-hmm.
create recurring revenue.
Yeah.
But these recurring revenue models and stuff on the left hand side here, in most cases, aren't really learning platforms. Teachable is probably the closest. Kajabi's not bad either, but mostly, they're just kind of these community platforms. Or in the case of Udemy, not it's not a community micro learning platform. So, but you're right. From a where we find our customers is TikTok and
Mm-hmm.
YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah.
That's where
Yep.
most of our partners are coming from.
Yeah. Because again, you're just adding that extra element to their revenue stream, right?
To the influencers, we're giving them a way to monetize, essentially on a month, for a subscription basis. So they're making money every month as opposed to, hey, I made $2,000 because I wore my pair of Nike shoes and the Nike peeled off a couple grand at me.
Totally.
But what we provide is an ability, if they've got something to teach, to create a private learning community about whatever topic they're doing, and then they can then if they've got 1,000, we've actually got a calculator on the website. I can show it to you if you'd like, but it shows exactly how much these guys will make if they have at certain thresholds. If they have 100 users and they're charging $20 a month, and we
Nice.
break it down in terms of their 85%, the Stripe fees, and our we're a B Corp, so we believe in radical transparency.
Love it. That's awesome. So moving forward, now is when I would get into traction, right? So
Okay.
This is again going back to kind of those awards. I would pull that out of that business model slide, throw those all onto one slide. I would also kind of put those major milestones that you guys have hit over the last 2 years,
Yep.
and then use those as my traction slides. And then I would split your slide 6 is trying to kind of get at milestones and a forecast. I
Yep.
would pull out those milestones, right? So these are the things that we're trying to accomplish over the next whatever your capital raise is, so 12 to 18 months.
Right.
Pull that out completely. And then your team slide is it's okay. I love the visual part of it. It's just the font is so
Too
small that I
small.
can't.
I
Yeah,
got
it's
it.
really hard to. It's hard to read. And I will say, like, I've seen other decks with your color combination. Um, if you were presenting this on a big screen, green sometimes fades away. I've seen
Mhm.
it actually go to completely white. So, and same with the grays. You have a, like, really light blacks, so grays. Um,
Yep.
and so sometimes those colors, if you were to present like on a big screen in a room, might fade away.
Yep.
So just keep those things in mind. And then thank you for ending with your ask slide. That's one of my like things that I want everybody in the world to do. Um, let's see, standard safe agreement. So you don't need that, and you want to add the terms to the safe agreement.
Yeah, I had
Um,
them in here and I took it off because, I mean, again, we just ended our
yeah,
friends and family round. So what I had in this deck was, the terms and, the 10% discount, the the valuation cap. I haven't fully decided what my value, I mean, we know what our post raise valuation is. What we don't have yet is what we think our valuation will be at the end of Q1. And actually, I would love to work with an institutional investor to work through that. Right?
makes sense.
That's kind of what I'm really looking for with this is to find someone who's going to come in and lead the round.
Cool. Yeah. So this is great. Thanks for letting me like kind of go through this with you.
Sure, man. I appreciate it. That was
Yeah,
great feedback. I love it.
yeah,
I mean, I've obviously very much in line with, I mean, I'm definitely in line with kind of the focus on this business and
yep.
kind of turning this into a pivot slide as opposed to everything. I like your ideas of making this more of our general purpose KPI. What do you think about the idea of doing what you said here, of taking these awards off and putting them at the bottom of this slide? Or do you think that's double dipping too much?
No, I would pull the awards out and put them on their own slide.
Got it.
It's kind of like if you're working with a bunch of brand partners,
Yeah.
pulling all those and putting them on one slide,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah. I
it's
like
just
your
it's
NASCAR
I call they're
style.
like I love me slides, right? Look,
Right.
what you're trying to communicate is we are a real business.
Yep.
That's it. And then you do that however you want to do that. One more thing that I would add is
Sure.
in your solution. I know we talked about splitting this one up, but show me how the product looks and does those things.
Yeah.
Um, so my next question, that we usually ask all of our guests is based off of what we heard today, would we move the company onto due diligence? And I think this is a great presentation as far as like you speaking. I learned about your background. I didn't know. So there's elements literally just missing that would have given me more confidence in what you're trying to do. But I also didn't get to see the product at all.
Well,
And
I
so,
typically follow this up with a product demo. I mean,
yeah,
so we could certainly do that. But yeah, that's the typical next step. But I guess what you're suggesting is, hey, why don't you just put some screenshots of the product in the deck?
yep,
Yeah, smart.
yeah.
Okay.
Because again, like you're right. So typically, or not typically, but what's happening lately that I've seen is, yeah, they do tech demos pretty. If I'm interested in the product, then I want to go see a tech demo. But like, you didn't give me anything to get excited about,
Sure.
other than just you, right?
Sure. Sure.
Um, so because again, I love ed tech stuff, and so I play around with like I have master class, and
Sure.
I'm a all those things, and so when I want to see
Masterclass
it and be
probably
like,
does belong on here, by the way. I just haven't added them.
yeah,
But
I actually wrote that down as a competitor.
yeah, no, that they
Um,
are. That I agree with. I mean, the only thing is Masterclass doesn't. I mean, they actually go out and find the talent, and they're paying. It's a little different. It's not a subscription model in the same way, at least from the influencer perspective, because they're finding professors of physics or whatever. They're finding.
Well, and they're selling brand names,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Like Gordon Ramsay's not out selling his own course. Like
That's
that's
right.
not happening.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah, yeah, no. So,
No.
that's not why I don't have them on here. They should be on here. You're 100%
Yeah.
right.
So yeah, so to answer my own question, this is actually something I'd really like to follow up with. I would love to see a demo of the product. I'll actually go and download it to check it out.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Um, but like if I just went strictly what I heard, I would have to say no because there wasn't enough information for me to get excited. I don't know what the product actually does. Um, and then I don't know what your finances were coming into this. So are you going from $0 to 3 million? That's a pretty big leap. Or are you going from 1 million to 3 million? You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, and so like there's some things that just literally are just missing. And so I think if you add those things, you will it'd be very more enticing.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate your
And
thoughts on that.
congrats on the fundraise. Not everyone gets to do that. So great job there.
It's been fun. It's been it's been interesting. I never. I mean, my background, I was a software engineer in the '90s, and then became the CTO of a video platform, one of the earliest ones, called Multicast Media, where we did like a lot of faith-based broadcasting and stuff. But it was before YouTube, it was before Bright Cove, it was before any of them. And we were, it's just as bad being too early as being too late, unfortunately.
I've been there
Yeah,
twice
and
actually.
but
So I
I've
get it.
stuck with video really my whole career. I mean, I've been in and around it. My last company was a video platform company that we sold to a public company in Canada, and yeah, so I can't seem to get away from it.
Awesome. Well, Pete, thank you so much for being on the show. If you guys are looking for help with your pitch decks, please reach out. Also, check out our competitions. We're having one every other month for the foreseeable future. And then if you're needing help with your finances, check out Forecaster. There's links in the description for all that stuff. And we'll see you all next time.